welcome to my first video in quite a while. So as you may now have gathered from watching my birth story, little baby Tamsin is now here. So no, we didn't know we were having a girl. We obviously knew we were having a baby. We were having a girl, yeah, and she has now been in this world for 2 weeks and a day. So I'm literally snatching some time while she's asleep upstairs, and I was just going to give you a run through really of how our first 2 weeks have been. Now originally I was hoping to do a bit more of a regular update and really document on her first days, because I know how quickly babies change. But to be perfectly honest, the 2 weeks have gone by in an absolute blur of coffee and nappies and feeding and expressing and vomit, and I don't even really know what day of the week it is half of the time, because all the days just seem to merge into one, and I live on basically clock watching every hour or every hour and a half to then figure out when her next feed is. But to give you a run through of how our first 2 weeks have been, all in all, they've been good. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It has been a massive shock to the system. Although we have lots of godchildren, and obviously you see them from very young, you never actually have them yourselves. You know, you're always giving them back, or if you are having them like to babysit or overnight, they're often a little bit older rather than actually newborn. And there are things for me to learn. Like, I've never dressed a newborn baby before. I have never changed the nappy of a newborn baby before, and I certainly have never ever breastfed before. As a disclaimer, there is no kind of discrimination against or prejudice against anyone who is bottle feeding or breastfeeding. It is completely up to you how you feed your child. In my head, as long as, you know, fed is best, and happy mum, happy baby. And I'm not going to lie, the feeding has been the biggest challenge that we've had to face. And it's not just been stressful for me, I think it's been pretty stressful for Tamsin as well as my husband Mark. He has got a previous child, who he's got another daughter, and she was breastfed, she was bottle fed, apologies, from birth. So he can do a comparison of each, and even he admits that the breastfeeding has been far more stressful even for him, mainly because Tamsin has been cluster feeding. So at the very beginning, Tamsin was delivered by forceps, and they believe that the actual forceps could have bruised her jaw. So that was causing it to be very painful for her to open her mouth, so she wouldn't open her mouth very far. She also has a very petite little mouth. If you look back at baby photos of me, I think that, you know, it's just going to be a genetic thing, although my mouth has got rather large now. As a baby, if you actually look at baby photos, we've got very similar jaws, and then from her nose and her eyes, she's very much her dad. But because of that, she was really struggling to latch onto me, so we did have an extended stay in hospital because of that. It was then decided, with the help of the breastfeeding team, that actually a nipple shield would be the way forward. For anyone who's not seen a nipple shield, I'll insert a clip for you, but essentially it is a silicone covering that goes over your nipple, and it makes it far more pointed, and actually it's a smaller surface area for her to get her mouth around, and we've been using that and we have been feeding fine. However, during the day she tends to feed every hour, which has been incredibly draining because she feeds for approximately 20 minutes. You then obviously need to wind her, and then you need to change her ahead of the, we tend to change her at the start of a feed, just to make sure she's awake, because she is so small, she does tend to fall asleep when she's feeding, just because of the sheer effort of having to get the food. so it is quite a challenge to keep her awake for the full feed. So as you can imagine, you then have about 15 minutes by the time you've done all those things before she then needs to go back on your breast again. And that has been going on now for a good week to 10 days. We're being told by the midwives that this is quite normal, and it's just her way of making sure that there's enough milk supply and getting the milk through, and then gradually this should settle down when she knows that there is going to be a constant supply of milk. I've also been trying to express in the meantime, so then it means that Mark can do the late evening feed. So I tend to feed at about 10, 10:30, and then in the evenings and the night she actually stretches out her feed. So during the night we tend to only get up once, maybe twice. So Mark tends to do one of those because he's up already anyway, and then I'll do the other. So if I feed about 10, 10:30, Mark then feeds her a bottle of express milk at around midnight. Sometimes if she's been sleeping we can stretch it out till 1, but 1 is normally the maximum, and then she tends to get me up at about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then she'll then go through till about 6. And then 6 is when we tend to start our day. Sometimes I can then get her back off again before she then wakes up again at 8, and then we start our hourly feeds all over again. In the last probably 3-4 days she has actually been going to an hour and a half, which has been a godsend, and she has started actually napping in the morning for a good 2-3 hours. So she was never sleeping in the day, she'd only ever sleep at night, but she has started to have a nap around about 10ish, although today it was a lot earlier, and that's then when I'm filming this. So I'm trying to be as quick as I can because I have no idea when she's going to wake up from this one, because this is completely out of the new routine. And that's been an absolute godsend because it's meant I can actually whip around the house and actually do stuff. And you don't realise how much of a house ninja you can be if you know you've only got a certain time scale to do stuff and you're used to having someone on you constantly. Other kind of victories that we've had, confidence has been a huge thing. I never really kind of contemplated it, and I think it's mainly the feeding that has dented the confidence in terms of going out and how to manage that with the feeding. So last week was really the first week where I started to take steps to actually start getting out a bit more, because I guess bearing in mind the week before I was actually in hospital for 3-4 days, so I was then only home on my own probably for 2 of those days because we had family coming to stay. Mark unfortunately had to go straight back to work because he's self-employed, so we haven't had the luxury of a 2-week paternity leave. I've been pretty much on my own with the help of family calling in, who have been fantastic, and we've had to try and do it that way. But from last week I then started making steps. So on the Tuesday, on the Monday, I actually drove to a local retail park that's about 10-15 minutes away with my mum as a passenger. So that was going to be the first time I'd actually driven my car in about 2.5 weeks. So it was the fact of getting used to driving again, plus driving with a passenger, and it's safe to say I think I drove like I just passed my test. I did like 20 miles an hour all the way. And we then wandered around the retail park for about an hour, and the car thankfully sends Tamsin off to sleep, so it does tend to mean you get a little bit longer at your destination rather than having to do the hourly feed. But yes, as soon as we got back, I did then have to feed her. So all in all I was out for about an hour and a half. So did that. The next day I actually drove to my in-laws, who are about 20 minutes away. So again, it was the first trip out, but it was then at a location where I knew I could then feed comfortably. So I just went over there. I was getting used to taking her in and out of the car, and just generally taking her out really with like a change bag and make sure we had everything that we needed. And then sure enough, I could then feed her there, had a cup of tea, and then could come home again. Wednesday I then took it a step further and actually went and met a friend for coffee. It was at a venue that I know very, very well. I actually know the owners of the restaurant, so it did then mean if I wanted to feed somewhere privately, I could then go upstairs into the office. However, I was determined to try and feed in public just so I could get used to it. So I did pick a booth right up the corner, and I then was actually able to feed with a muslin cloth kind of draped over me, and I was with a very close friend, so I could say, look, watch me, and if at any point you see anything, tell me, then I know I'm doing this wrong. And I actually managed to successfully feed her twice doing that, and then she went off to sleep. So on the way back from there, I actually took advantage of that and popped to a supermarket just to see if I could get her some little clothes, because she is so small that none of her newborn stuff is fitting her, and she stayed asleep for that as well. So that was a successful trip. On the Thursday, I then ventured into the city again with my mum and my sister as a bit of moral support. I went after what I'd call after hours, so we left at about 4 o'clock. To then go in the city. We went to Primark, which is one of my favourite shops, again to have a look at some baby stuff, in the hope that you know, it'll be quieter. I could then find where the mother and baby parking was. We can navigate, like I could then use the pram and figure out some bits. That trip wasn't quite so successful. I'd fed her just before we left. And although I was then thinking the car would send her to sleep, and so I'd timed the feeding right, for whatever reason the timings were slightly off, and she managed to scream the whole of Primark down. So I then had to change her and try and feed her in the corner of Primark, whereby there is no private areas. I didn't know where the nearest feeding rooms were. From what I could gather on my phone, there was going to be one, which was going to be quite a walk away, which with her squawking I didn't think was manageable, or certainly wasn't going to be fair to her. I'd be better off just trying to attempt to feed with a cloth over me again, but it wasn't in as secluded area, and I think I was then getting myself het up as well, so all in all it wasn't the most successful trip. However, then come the weekend, we did then venture into the city again, just me, Mark and Becky, so Mark's previous daughter and Tamsin's sister, and we've now getting the knack of actually taking out a bottle of express milk with us. So if we are in a place where I can feed, then I will. If not, we have got a bottle of express milk with us. So they have been the kind of biggest challenges, but I'm quite proud of myself really for actually venturing out this far. The other element that I hadn't taken into account is actually my postpartum body. They tell you that it will be a deflated balloon, which it is, and I felt that, or I kind of presume this might last for a few days, but 2 weeks on I'm still very deflated balloon like, and it is very jelly like because you haven't got anything firm on the inside now to push it out, and I'm now left with the stretch marks from my darling daughter from when she used to push her bum out, and so they now go in a nice swirly design all around my belly button, which is delightful. And maternity clothes don't fit you properly because you haven't got a firm bump to go into it, but then my normal clothes don't fit me either, and then on top of that you need clothes that are easy to feed in. So there is really an opening. I know places like H&M and New Look are really bringing up their kind of feeding clothes range, well, their maternity range, but in terms of actual feeding clothes it is really difficult to find anything, and even find clothes, normal clothes, which are then suitable for feeding. I don't know what size to get because nothing fits me because I still have a semi-pregnant looking body. It's very odd. In terms of Tamsin, she is incredible. I am going to be biased because she is my own daughter, but it does really feel like she's got her own personality already from the birth. She's incredibly stubborn. She does things her way, and she'll do it when she's ready, essentially. It's crazy to see her change already. So from about 3 days in, I would say, she really picks out Mark's voice. As soon as he walks in the door, she's trying to figure out where his voice is. And although she would look at you, she wouldn't really focus, but in the last probably couple of days, she's really started to focus on you, and she proper looks at you. You do get slight windy smiles, but they are proper like grins, and you can see she's going to be a real cheeky little girl. And she's full of expressions, and they always seem to be timed just right. So if you hear an anecdote about the fact that she has had a punami, you'll see her kind of lay back and go, oh, I'll hear this story again. I'm going to hear this when I'm 18. She is already pushing down on her feet, so she's laying on your chest, which seems to be one of her most favourite positions to be in. She will push down on your thighs. She's already lifting up her head, and she's been doing that from about day 2. This morning in bed, she did actually even start to roll over, although that could have been fluke in the way the mattress was going. Don't panic, we aren't co-sleeping. It's just the fact that in the early hours I do feed her lying on my side in bed, because it's easier than to get her back into bed. It's also nicer for me because I can kind of doze at the same time. And what else? Oh, and she's now started to do, so she looks like she's Superwoman all the time. She lays back with her one of her fists out, and she's actually started to notice it, and you can see in her head she's trying to figure out, is that part of me, and how do I control it? Which typically I don't think actually happens till around week 7, week 8, and considering she's only 2 weeks old, that's quite ahead of her time. But hey ho, if that's the way she's going. Yesterday we took another family trip out to Sheringham. My mum and my sister actually came with us, but it was the first time me and Mark have actually been out on our own with her, which was lovely. It was nice to go for a walk, and again we had another first, whereby she got hungry, so I nipped back to the car to feed her, and while feeding her, she let's just say you could hear her filling her nappy, which you just thought, oh, we can't leave her in that. She's going to have to be changed. Where can you change her in a seaside town on a bank holiday Monday? So it was a case of having to change her on the car seat, or on my seat of the car, because the pram had filled up the boot, and she had successfully managed to cover herself in her own feces. It had gone all the way up her back. How she had done it, it was quite a feat. And so we did have to actually strip her and change her whole outfit, while trying to change her while laying out on a car seat. So that was a new challenge and something that we've learnt. But all in all, hopefully in the future coming weeks, I can then actually start to vlog what we are up to and try and document our progress. I can also then try and add in these sit down bits at the end as well. If you tell me what you prefer, then I can make sure I tailor the videos to that. But it'd be really nice to actually document her time as things go along. And I'll hopefully be inserting some photos of her development in this video too. She has successfully now met, I think, every single member of her family, bar my stepmom, who should be coming over next month to meet her, because she lives in Malta. But other than that, she is thoroughly loved by all the family. I've been very lucky to have the support that I've had from my mum, my dad, my nan, and Mark's family, particularly his in-laws as well as his sisters. And I've also got quite a few friends who are willing to rally round and try and help me get to grips with this whole parenting malarkey, which has been, yeah, it has been a challenge, but a nice challenge nonetheless. So I'll do a quick body shot, so hopefully I can then document the progress of it going down, purely because I didn't realise how long postpartum bodies took to kind of deflate again. So it would be nice to actually reassure other people who are going through similar things that, that unless I am abnormal, that actually is normal, and we can deflate together, and then hopefully I can then get to a point where I can then actually start Slimming World or something to try and get my pre-baby body back in time for our holiday in October. So I have 5 months and counting. Eek! So this is my tum. I don't think it helps because I'm still wearing what are they, non-underwire bras, nursing bras, just to make it easier for me to nurse. I think as and when I have underwired, I then have a bit of a better shape up the top. At the moment it kind of just merges. And then I still have this bump in front. I am still wearing maternity leggings. They are quite comfy. I won't show you a shot of the stretch marks because I think they're grotesque to me, let alone anybody else. So yeah, so there is still a sizable bump there, but hopefully in time we can get rid of this. So as always, click like and subscribe if you want to see future videos from me. But until next time, bye bye.